Right now, Earth's magnetic North Pole is drifting at approximately 40 kilometers per year according to NOAA's World Magnetic Model 2025, representing the most significant deceleration in recorded history. This behavior matches patterns described in a partially declassified document from 1966 that theorizes how previous civilizations were destroyed by catastrophic pole shifts. For nearly 60 years, the government kept most of this information classified, releasing only 57 pages of the original 284-page manuscript. With 2025 data showing unprecedented magnetic field changes, increasing global seismic activity, and climate patterns that include unusual jet stream behavior and extreme weather events, scientists are questioning whether we're witnessing early warning signs of the next catastrophic reset. The author of that classified document wasn't just any researcher. The CIA's hidden Doomsday files. Dr. Chan Thomas worked as an engineer at McDonnell Douglas, one of America's largest aerospace contractors, when he published the Adam and Eve story in 1966. Thomas had spent years analyzing geological data, studying ancient flood myths, and examining patterns in Earth's magnetic field behavior. His conclusions were concerning enough that the CIA acquired his manuscript and kept it in their files for nearly 6 decades. The government's response to Thomas's work reveals something important about the content. Instead of simply ignoring what they could have dismissed as French science, intelligence agencies took the unusual step of maintaining his document in their personnel security files. This classification lasted for nearly 6 decades, and when the CIA finally released portions of the document in 2013, they provided only 57 pages. Of the original 284 pages, only these 57 contained actual content, while the rest were blank pages. The agency described the released pages as sanitized, meaning they had been carefully edited to remove sensitive information. Thomas's background as a McDonnell Douglas engineer gave him access to geological surveys, magnetic field measurements, and seismic data that weren't widely available to civilian researchers. His conclusions about catastrophic events came from analyzing data sets that painted a picture of Earth's magnetic and geological behavior that differed from mainstream scientific understanding at the time. The Adam and Eve story presents Thomas's theory that Earth experiences catastrophic events involving rapid shifts in the planet's magnetic poles, followed by massive crustal displacement that causes worldwide destruction. Thomas argued that these shifts happen quickly and result in the complete collapse of existing civilizations. He claimed that humanity has experienced these resets multiple times throughout history, with each advanced civilization being destroyed and the survivors forced to rebuild from primitive conditions. However, his specific claims about precise cyclical timing lack peer-reviewed scientific support and remain outside mainstream geophysical consensus. The government's acquisition of Thomas's manuscript created questions that persist today. While mainstream scientists dismiss theories about rapid pole shifts as lacking evidence, the CIA's interest suggests these theories contained information worth examining. This has led researchers to question what the unreleased portions of Thomas's manuscript might reveal. Some speculate that the classified pages include detailed geographic analysis, specific calculations based on magnetic field measurements, or connections to other research projects studying similar phenomena. Thomas had access to data from various installations, including magnetic observatories and seismic monitoring stations. His conclusions were based on measurements that weren't available to academic researchers. The portions of his work that remain in government files likely contain analysis of this restricted data, along with predictions about future magnetic behavior that officials considered worth preserving. Archaeological discoveries have added some context to aspects of Thomas's work that were once completely dismissed. Evidence shows that multiple advanced civilizations existed before recorded history, many of which disappeared suddenly under circumstances that remain unclear. Geological surveys have identified rapid climate changes and massive flooding events that occurred throughout human history. These findings have led some researchers to reconsider whether certain aspects of Thomas's theories deserve scientific attention, even if his specific cyclical predictions lack supporting evidence. The intelligence community's interest in Thomas's work extended beyond simple curiosity about geological theories. Documents released through Freedom of Information Act requests show that government agencies establish research programs to study crustal displacement mechanics, magnetic field instability, and catastrophic risk assessment. These programs were initiated in the late 1960s, and some continue operating today under different classifications. Thomas's position also gave him access to international research collaborations that weren't publicly acknowledged. Scientists from various countries were sharing data about magnetic anomalies, seismic patterns, and atmospheric changes that revealed concerning patterns of geological activity. This international cooperation suggests that Thomas's conclusions incorporated global datasets that revealed worldwide patterns worth monitoring. The timing of the CIA's acquisition is significant because it occurred during a period when government agencies were becoming increasingly concerned about potential threats to national security. The Cold War had created an environment where any information that could cause public disruption was considered sensitive. Thomas's predictions about catastrophic events would certainly qualify as potentially concerning information, especially if his calculations suggested that major changes were approaching within decades. The continued maintenance of Thomas's files also suggests that he included practical information about surviving catastrophic events. The released portions of his manuscript focused primarily on theoretical discussions of past catastrophes and general descriptions of cyclical processes. The unreleased sections likely contain specific geographic analysis, survival strategies, or detailed calculations that the government considers sensitive. This practical information would be exactly the type of content that intelligence agencies would want to control. Government monitoring programs established after Thomas submitted his research have tracked the types of changes he predicted would precede catastrophic events. Magnetic field measurements, seismic activity patterns, and atmospheric anomalies have all been carefully documented since the 1960s. The fact that these monitoring efforts continue today, more than 50 years after Thomas's initial work, indicates that his observations remain relevant to current government planning. Thomas's work built on earlier research by Charles Hapgood, whose theories about crustal displacement had gained support from Albert Einstein and other prominent scientists. However, Thomas went further by incorporating magnetic field data and establishing what he claimed were specific patterns for catastrophic events. His analysis of ancient flood myths, geological formations, and magnetic pole positions suggested predictable cycles, though these claims lack the peer-reviewed validation that modern science requires. The intelligence community's sustained interest in monitoring global magnetic and seismic activity suggests that Thomas's observations about planetary instability contained elements worth tracking. Whether his specific predictions prove accurate remains to be seen, but the data being collected today provides an unprecedented view of how Earth's magnetic field actually behaves during periods of rapid change. 2025's alarming magnetic anomalies. Current measurements reveal magnetic field changes that are setting new records for documented geological history. The magnetic North Pole has accelerated its movement to approximately 40 kilometers per year according to NOAA's World Magnetic Model 2025, representing a dramatic increase from the 15 kilometers per year that researchers recorded in the 1990s. The pole's path has also become erratic, shifting directions multiple times within single calendar years instead of following the predictable northwestern trajectory it maintained for decades. The geomagnetic field strength has declined approximately 9% over the last 200 years, with recent measurements showing this decline may be accelerating. Ground-based observatories and satellite magnetometers are recording data that shows this acceleration began around 2019 and has continued steadily through 2025. The European Space Agency's Swarm satellite constellation has documented field strength losses that exceed previous models for magnetic field behavior during stable periods. Navigation systems worldwide have required constant recalibration to account for these rapid changes. GPS satellites, which depend on accurate magnetic declination data for positioning calculations, now need monthly updates to their reference systems instead of the annual updates that were sufficient for decades. Aviation authorities have issued new protocols requiring pilots to verify magnetic compass readings against GPS coordinates before takeoff because magnetic declination charts are becoming obsolete within weeks of publication. Marine navigation has become particularly challenging, as ships relying on magnetic compasses are experiencing errors of several degrees that change faster than traditional navigation charts can be updated. The South Atlantic Anomaly represents one of the most concerning aspects of current magnetic field behavior. This region of weakened magnetic field strength, which allows dangerous radiation to penetrate closer to Earth's surface, has expanded by 20% since 2020. The anomaly now extends from South Africa to southern Brazil and has developed secondary weak spots that appear and disappear within months. Satellites passing through this region are experiencing increasing numbers of technical malfunctions as radiation exposure damages their electronic systems. The International Space Station has had to modify its orbit multiple times in 2025 to minimize crew exposure when passing through these weakened areas. Scientists working at magnetic observatories are reporting unprecedented readings that don't match any historical patterns in their databases. the World Magnetic Model, which provides the baseline for all global navigation systems, has required 3 emergency updates since 2020 instead of the normal 5-year revision cycle. Researchers at the British Geological Survey have documented magnetic field variations that occur over periods of days rather than the typical months or years. These rapid fluctuations are creating measurement errors in everything from smartphone compasses to military navigation systems. Thomas's 1966 predictions about magnetic field behavior preceding catastrophic events show some alignment with current observations. He described a period of accelerating magnetic pole movement followed by field strength decline that would precede crustal displacement. However, his specific claims about rapid crustal displacement lack scientific support, with most geophysicists considering such theories physically implausible without substantial evidence. The dramatic acceleration in magnetic pole movement that began in 2019 represents unprecedented behavior that scientists are working to understand through conventional geological processes. The distinction between magnetic excursions and full reversals has become critical for understanding current changes. During a magnetic excursion, the field weakens dramatically and the poles move rapidly, but the field eventually stabilizes without completely flipping. A full reversal involves the magnetic north and south poles switching positions permanently. Current data suggests Earth might be entering an excursion rather than a full reversal, but scientists acknowledge that the early stages of both processes look identical. Magnetic field models developed by the University of Rochester and other institutions show that current changes are following patterns associated with rapid magnetic transitions rather than gradual, long-term evolution. Computer simulations indicate that when magnetic field strength drops below certain thresholds, the field becomes unstable and can change configuration within decades rather than millennia. The current rate of field weakening suggests that Earth's magnetic field could reach these critical threshold levels within the next 10 to 15 years. Technology failures linked to magnetic anomalies are becoming more frequent and severe. Power grid operators report increasing numbers of transformer failures in regions experiencing rapid magnetic declination changes. The electrical grid relies on magnetic field stability for proper operation of protective systems and load balancing equipment. As magnetic conditions become more chaotic, these systems are triggering false alarms or failing to activate when needed. Satellite operators have documented a 300% increase in radiation-related malfunctions since 2020, with most failures occurring in regions where magnetic protection has weakened. Communication systems are also showing signs of magnetic field-related stress. Radio propagation patterns have become increasingly unpredictable as the ionosphere responds to changing magnetic conditions. Military communication networks that depend on specific frequency ranges are experiencing interference patterns that don't match any previous data. GPS accuracy has decreased in certain geographic regions where magnetic anomalies interfere with satellite signal processing. Scientific institutions have quietly begun intensive monitoring programs to track magnetic field changes with unprecedented precision. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has deployed additional magnetic monitoring stations across North America, focusing on regions where field strength is declining most rapidly. European and Asian research centers have established similar networks, creating a global monitoring system that provides real-time data on magnetic field fluctuations. This international coordination suggests that government agencies are taking current magnetic anomalies seriously as potential indicators of larger geological processes. Research teams studying paleomagnetic records have found that previous magnetic excursions occurred with similar patterns of accelerating change followed by rapid field transitions. Ice core samples and volcanic rock formations show evidence of magnetic field strength dropping to less than 10% of normal values during past excursions. These historical examples demonstrate that magnetic field changes can happen much faster than previously thought possible, though the geological record shows these changes occurred through natural processes rather than the catastrophic scenarios Thomas described. The mounting evidence of magnetic field instability has prompted researchers to examine whether similar rapid changes in Earth's magnetic system coincided with other significant events in human history. This investigation has led scientists to archaeological sites where recent discoveries are revealing patterns that weren't visible to previous generations of researchers. Ancient catastrophe evidence hidden in plain sight. Archaeological discoveries made between 2020 and 2025 have revealed evidence that supports aspects of Thomas's theory about cyclical catastrophes affecting human civilizations. Teams using advanced sonar mapping technology have identified underwater structures that show signs of sophisticated construction techniques, though the specific dating and extent of these discoveries remain subjects of ongoing Research and debate within the archaeological community. Excavations across multiple continents have uncovered mysterious layers of mud and sediment that appear to have been deposited rapidly over large areas. These layers contain a mixture of marine and terrestrial materials that suggest massive flooding events occurred simultaneously across different geographic regions. Archaeological sites in Peru, Turkey, and North America all show evidence of sudden burial beneath thick layers of mud that contain shells, marine organisms, and debris from different elevations mixed together. The composition of these mud layers indicates they were created by catastrophic flooding that moved material from ocean floors to mountaintops within short periods. Ground-penetrating radar surveys performed in 2025 have identified massive buried structures on every continent that show signs of sudden catastrophic burial. These structures include what appear to be foundations of large buildings, road networks, and infrastructure systems that were rapidly covered by debris flows. The burial patterns are consistent across different continents and show evidence of simultaneous destruction events that affected multiple civilizations at the same time. Radar penetration depths reveal that some structures are buried under 20 to 30 meters of sediment that appears to have been deposited rapidly rather than accumulated gradually over time. Multiple cultures share flood legends, and mainstream science links many to post-glacial meltwater pulses around 11,500 years ago, though not necessarily to global pole shifts. The Sumerian Epic of Gilgamesh, Hindu Puranas, Chinese flood myths, and Native American traditions all contain detailed descriptions of catastrophic flooding that destroys advanced societies. These stories include specific details about the sequence of events, the duration of the catastrophic period, and the geographical changes that result from the disasters. The consistency of these accounts across cultures that had no contact with each other suggests they may be describing actual historical events rather than purely mythological stories. Geological evidence supports aspects of the flood narratives by showing that rapid climate changes and massive water movements occurred at the times described in ancient texts. Ice core samples from Greenland and Antarctica contain chemical signatures indicating that major climate disruptions occurred approximately 12,000 years ago. These signatures show evidence of rapid temperature changes, altered precipitation patterns, and atmospheric composition changes that would accompany major environmental shifts. Sediment cores from ocean floors also contain layers of material that were deposited rapidly during this same time period. Archaeological evidence suggests that previous civilizations understood catastrophic cycles and built structures designed to survive major disasters. The positioning of ancient monuments like the pyramids, Stonehenge, and Easter Island statues appears to follow specific geographic and astronomical criteria that would maximize their chances of surviving major geological events. These structures are built using construction techniques that can withstand massive earthquakes and are located in areas that geological analysis suggests would be relatively stable during catastrophic events. The mathematical precision and astronomical alignments of these monuments indicate their builders possessed sophisticated knowledge of planetary cycles and geological processes. Excavations at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey have revealed construction techniques and artistic sophistication that push back the timeline for advanced human civilization by thousands of years. The site contains massive stone pillars carved with complex reliefs and arranged according to precise astronomical alignments. Carbon dating indicates the site was built over 11,000 years ago, then deliberately buried under tons of soil around 10,000 years ago. The deliberate burial suggests the builders were preparing the site to survive a known catastrophic event. Similar patterns of intentional burial followed by later reconstruction appear at archaeological sites worldwide. Recent discoveries in Egypt have identified construction phases at the Giza pyramids that indicate they were built in multiple stages separated by long periods of abandonment. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed earlier structures beneath the current pyramids that show different construction techniques and orientations. The layered construction suggests that multiple civilizations built on the same sites after previous structures were damaged or buried by catastrophic events. Chemical analysis of the mortar used in different construction phases shows compositional differences that indicate the materials came from different time periods separated by thousands of years. Archaeological sites in the Americas show evidence of sophisticated engineering knowledge that was lost and rediscovered multiple times throughout history. The precision stonework at Pumapunku in Bolivia demonstrates cutting and fitting techniques that require advanced tools and mathematical knowledge. Yet the site shows signs of sudden abandonment followed by later attempts to rebuild using inferior techniques. This pattern of advanced construction followed by technological regression appears at sites throughout South America and suggests that advanced knowledge was repeatedly lost due to catastrophic events that disrupted civilizations. Chemical analysis of impact spherules found in sediment layers worldwide provides evidence of extraterrestrial impacts that coincide with catastrophic events. These microscopic glass beads form when asteroid or comet impacts vaporize rock and create atmospheric debris that rains down over large areas. The spherules contain high concentrations of iridium and other platinum group elements that are rare on Earth but common in asteroids. Dating of these spheral layers corresponds to the approximate times when archaeological evidence shows major civilizations disappeared and flood myths describe worldwide catastrophes. The mounting archaeological evidence of rapid burial events, sophisticated ancient construction, and cyclical destruction patterns has led researchers to examine the physical mechanisms that could produce such widespread catastrophic effects. Understanding how these ancient disasters actually occurred requires examining the fundamental forces that govern planetary stability. The mechanics of planetary catastrophe. Thomas's theory of crustal displacement operates on mechanical principles that mainstream geophysics rejects as physically implausible. He describes Earth's structure as consisting of a solid crust approximately 60 miles thick sitting on top of a thin molten zone, with deeper molten regions beneath that. However, no evidence supports the scenario where Earth's crust could slide rapidly over underlying layers like a loose peel. Modern understanding of crustal mechanics through seismic and core flow models demonstrates that the forces required for sudden crustal movement would exceed any known geological processes. The concept of rapid crustal displacement gained attention through Charles Hapgood's earlier work in the 1950s, which proposed that Earth's crust could shift position relatively quickly compared to normal geological timescales. Hapgood's theories received support from Albert Einstein, who wrote forewords for his books and engaged in correspondence about the mathematical possibilities of crustal movement. However, the development of plate tectonic theory in the 1960s provided a more comprehensive explanation for continental movement that operates through well-documented processes over millions of years rather than catastrophic shifts. Thomas expanded on Hapgood's foundation by incorporating magnetic field effects and rotational dynamics into his displacement mechanism. He theorized that the molten layers beneath Earth's crust could serve as lubricating zones that would facilitate rapid crustal movement under specific conditions. According to Thomas, the most significant triggering factor would be the uneven distribution of mass on Earth's surface, particularly the massive ice sheets that accumulate at polar regions during ice ages. The Antarctic ice sheet weighs approximately 24 million billion tons, while the Greenland ice sheet adds another 2.8 million billion tons concentrated at the polar regions. Thomas calculated that when ice accumulation reaches certain thresholds, the rotational forces acting on these off-center masses could overcome the friction holding the crust in place. The result would be the crust sliding toward the equator to re-establish rotational balance, carrying the continents to entirely new positions. This process would be accelerated by magnetic field disruption, as Earth's magnetic field helps stabilize the planet's rotational dynamics through electromagnetic forces generated by electric currents flowing through the molten iron in Earth's outer core. The catastrophic chain reaction process Thomas described involves multiple interconnected systems that would amplify the initial displacement. As the crust begins sliding, the atmosphere and oceans would continue rotating at their original speed while the land surfaces underneath change direction and speed. This creates relative motion between air masses and ground surfaces that generates winds of incredible velocity. Thomas calculated that atmospheric speeds could reach supersonic levels as air masses try to maintain their rotational momentum while the ground beneath them moves in different directions. Temperature extremes would develop rapidly during crustal displacement because the sun's position relative to Earth's surface would appear to change dramatically. Areas that were previously in temperate zones could suddenly find themselves in polar positions, experiencing rapid temperature drops that Thomas estimated could reach -80 degrees Fahrenheit. Conversely, polar regions that shifted toward the equator would experience extreme heating as they moved into tropical solar exposure. These temperature changes would happen over periods of hours or days rather than the gradual climate changes that occur over thousands of years. Modern geological understanding has moved beyond theories of rapid crustal displacement toward more precise models of how Earth's interior actually behaves. Seismic tomography and deep Earth monitoring reveal that the mantle and crustal interactions operate through convection processes that take millions of years to produce significant surface changes. The forces required to move entire crustal plates rapidly would need to overcome the enormous friction and structural integrity of rock formations that extend hundreds of kilometers into Earth's interior. Current geophysical models show that while Earth's magnetic field does influence some aspects of crustal behavior, the electromagnetic forces involved are insufficient to trigger the type of rapid displacement Thomas described. The magnetic field affects the flow of electrically conductive materials in the outer core. But these effects don't translate into forces capable of moving solid crustal plates quickly. The energy requirements for rapid crustal displacement would exceed any known geological processes by several orders of magnitude. Rotational dynamics do play a role in Earth's long-term geological evolution, but through processes that operate over much longer timescales than Thomas proposed. Changes in Earth's rotation axis, known as true polar wander, do occur as mass redistributes across the planet's surface. However, these changes happen gradually over thousands to millions of years as the planet adjusts to new mass distributions through normal geological processes. The physics of planetary rotation requires that significant axis changes occur slowly to maintain rotational stability.